Excellent. Well, listen, Mark, thanks so much for the introduction. Thanks to everybody who's here. I see my South African crew are here. It's good to see you, Jane. It's good to see you, Kaz. Nafar, I think we need to make you an honorary South African. But it's good to see everyone here. So without any further ado, I would like to move on with our presentation over here. So let me just check and see that everything is running smoothly. Okay, brilliant. So before we carry on, I'm talking to you tonight about why you need to work your online brand. And I've listened to a lot of the presentations already, and I just think that there's a lot of people talking about finding jobs, finding employment, and the best way for me to do this is to have a great online brand. And I think that that's kind of is the crux of what everyone needs to be aiming for. So in my presentation tonight, we're going to be looking at, well, it's tonight here in South Africa. It's just after 6. I'm delaying my glass of red wine so that I can do this presentation for you tonight. Maybe I should have had one. I'm not sure. But what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at why you need a personal brand. And then I'm going to give you a few pointers and a few tips on how to grow your online brand. So please ask questions as we go along. I'm monitoring the chat as we go through here. And if I pick up any questions, I'll answer them then and there. Don't leave them until the end, because if you're anything like me, you're going to forget about them. So awesome. So just before we get started, just a little bit about myself. So as Mark said, I'm a global sourcing trainer and sourcing specialist. So I believe that by sourcing, I keep my skills sharp. I'm always updating my training. And I love to teach people how to find talent. The golden moment for me is when I see that light bulb go on and people are just like, wow, I never knew you could do this. And that's really special. Also, I'm passionate about personal branding. And this is why when I chatted to Liz about speaking at this conference, I said, let's talk about online branding, because I believe that online branding is such a great way to bring in business. And, you know, one of my claim to fame is that I started my business 18 months ago. I went on my own. And since then, I actually haven't had to cold call for business, you know, even during the time of a pandemic. And I truly am blessed about that. But I believe it's because I have a good online presence, I have a good online brand, and I even have a silver lining to being part of the pandemic, is that I've managed to grow my business, and I'm doing a lot of international training at the moment, which was always my end goal. I never expected it to happen so quickly. And then just about my side hustles, because of one thing COVID has taught us is that we all need a side hustle. And my side hustle is that I do a lot of keynote speaking like this, which I thoroughly enjoy. I love sharing with other people. I love meeting people. I love collaborating with people. And the second thing is that these photographs are my own. I love being in the South African bushveld. I love taking photographs. It goes very well with having a gin and tonic in hand. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So what I'm going to start with today is I'm going to start with a quote by a young lady who I have been working with and I'm very proud of. Julia Adler is part of the Batman's team. She is the Wonder Woman component, and she's awesome. And she recently wrote a blog that really, really resonated with me. And what she said about companies branding was it was almost like I had that light bulb moment. What she said was that companies take the time to consider their brand. They decide they want to be seen and what they are known for in the industry. Their brand can uplift them to a more monetary success from their product or service awareness, or draw in the right type of employees. But how does this translate to an individual? And that really got me thinking, because, you know, thousands of dollars are spent about your brand and, you know, getting the business out there and what are people saying about us and how are we going to attract people. But people don't realize is that the individuals within those organizations also need to have a brand in order to attract people to the organization. I mean, working in the sourcing world, I had a conversation with a candidate this morning who said, you know, why would I work at the company? Who works there? Who am I going to learn from? Who can I aspire to be like? And it was a really, really good question. And I think that we need to take this employer branding a step further, and we need to identify champions and ambassadors within companies who can really stand out. So Julia, this was fantastic. It really got me thinking, and I like anything that gets me thinking. So thank you for writing the blog. If anyone wants to drop the link to Julia's blog in the chat, I think everyone would benefit from reading it. Well, I know everyone would benefit from reading it because I certainly did. So Jeff Bezos, love him or hate him. But what he says about your personal brand is that your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And this is quite difficult because if you're not in the room, you don't know what people are saying about you. You've got to trust that you've left an ally or a good friend in the room to find out what people really think. And what I want to say here is that I often will talk about a personal brand or an online brand, but for me, they're pretty much the same thing. You know, we're living in times of a pandemic. Thankfully, in South Africa, we're now sitting at level 1. We can even buy alcohol again, which is really exciting. But we're still having a lot of interactions online, and that is where people are going to get to know you. I mean, I haven't recruited anyone who I haven't checked out on every single social media platform for over 5 years now. And I think that's something which people need to realize, is that either you're a candidate or you're a client, but people are going to be looking at you online. And definitely gone are the days of when we can turn around and say, Facebook is my personal platform and, you know, this is just for friends and family. It's definitely becoming a strong business tool, you know, not on par with your LinkedIn as yet, but I do believe that it will get there. So if you want to find out about your own online or your personal brand, the easiest way for you to figure out what that looks like for other people is go and Google yourself. I read such a cool article the other day about, you know, when something becomes a verb, the company's really made it. But if you were to Google yourself, what do you find? And remember, let's not forget our Boolean here. You need to put your name into inverted commas because, I mean, if you are Susan Smith, there are going to be thousands of Susan Smiths in this world. So give the search a bit of information to help it along. And I don't think that people do this often enough because you don't know what's going to pop up. I mean, I always do this in my sourcing training. And, you know, unfortunately, in one of my recent trainings, I had someone who found a complaint on Hello Peter about them online. I've also had people find photographs of themselves from their university days, which are less than complimentary online. And I think that this is something that we need to do more frequently. But why do you need to have a strong online brand? So when you're in the L&D or the HR or the talent acquisition space, why do you need a strong online brand? What does this do for you? You know, we're not going to be doing this just for our health. We must get a return on investment when it comes to building a strong online brand. So your brand is actually responsible for talent attraction for the organization. And I mean, and it's so much easier when talent comes knocking on your door saying, I'd love to work with you. You've got an amazing brand. You've got amazing people who work for you. You've got this person who I saw present at this conference. He raved about the business or she raved about the business. I really want to work with them. I want to learn from them. And I want them to be the person to mentor and teach me. And I think that is what we should all be aiming for. You know, if something... when a new role, should I say, or job description hits your inbox and you starting from scratch and you having to go and find the talent, we all know how long and tedious that process can be. But if someone pops you an email out of the blue and says, hey, do you have any vacancies in your organization? I'd like to work for you. And you can make a plan and you can get them in. You know that that person's really excited to be working there and they're going to give you 110%. So your brand is what is going to be responsible for drawing people to the organization. So I want to give you a couple of reasons about why you need an outstanding online brand, okay? And this is definitely something which I've drawn from my personal experience and from watching other people who are really good online, that have a fantastic personal brand, the kind of people that I actually refer to as a talent magnet. So people that attract people towards them because they aspire to be like them. So the first reason that I want to look at is that by having a strong online brand, it inspires trust in your audience. So, you know, you want to have a brand where you, where people can see that you have got that positive social authority. So you've got more followers than people you are following, or you've got a decent sized network. And people value your opinion. You know, if you make a comment, they will come back to you. They're looking at what you're posting. And that trust is really, really important because I've been finding in the time of the pandemic and what I've been seeing and hearing is that people battle to form trusted relationships with people online. They would rather meet someone, look them in the eye, you know, reading body language. Are they getting a funny gut feel? All of those things. And those are just not possible anymore. So by having an online brand, it's going to go a long way to inspire trust in people, especially when you can't meet them. And with work going very global at the moment, you're not going to always meet everyone that you are working with and that you're going to be either training or recruiting. So we need to make sure that your online brand is someone will look at it and say, this is someone who I'm going to trust with my precious time. Second of all, you need to have a strong online brand because you want to stand out as a thought leader in your chosen industry. Personally, the word thought leader, it's right up there with me with trusted advisor. That word before this presentation, but I didn't get round to it. But what it says is true. It will help you to stand out. You know, if you're constantly sharing, if you are being seen by people, you're putting your opinions forward, you will automatically be seen as that thought leader. You may not feel it yourself. I think a lot of people in the industry do suffer from chronic imposter syndrome. But even though you might not think it yourself, it's what you put out there, what people interpret. And I think that this is really important. You know, anyone who has a strong opinion is somebody who is going to stand out. You know, if you're gutsy enough to really stand by what you believe in, then do it. I really, really recommend it. And third of all, is that you're going to be more memorable than your competitors. So another thing which I always say is that you want to be remembered. You know, I always say to people that you want to be the second phone call. So when someone has a shocking day, apologies if you can hear those, there's rather big birds flying over in South Africa at the moment. When someone has had a bad day, they've had an argument with their boss, someone has used their coffee mug again, someone's stolen their lunch out of the fridge, you're going to be the second phone call. The first phone call is going to be to their partner saying, that's it, I'm done, I'm leaving this role. The second phone call must then be you to say, okay, I'm on the market. We've chatted before. We've met or we've had a conversation or we connected on LinkedIn or we chatted on email, whatever it may be. I wasn't ready to move then, but now I am ready to move. So how do you stay memorable? Okay, besides dressing up like this fancy penguin over here, is that you stay top of mind. So if you've got a good candidate, what I think that you should be doing is that stay in touch with that candidate. Even if that candidate's taken a counter offer, which is pretty much the worst thing in the world, or it's somebody that you've had in a training session before, add them to your network, grow your network. When that person is posting about something or commenting on something, go and comment, because what you're doing is that you're staying top of mind. And it's really important to stay top of mind so that you're the second phone call. You don't want your competitor to be the second phone call because they're more active on social platforms. You've been forgotten because you haven't followed up with the candidate since you met them 6 months or a year ago. You want to make sure that when the time comes to change jobs, you are the recruiter that they go to. When they want more training, you want to be that trainer or that learning and development specialist that they contact again because you delivered the best training. But not only that, you have stayed in touch with them just by liking, commenting, maybe even sharing some of their posts on social. And I think that that's really important. It's definitely a way that I have helped to grow my business. So I think we're number 4 now, is that if you have a great online brand, you'll find it a lot easier to sell yourself and your services. So one of my key catchphrases is, if someone's sitting on the fence about my trading, I think there's quite a few companies at the moment who are looking at budgets and all of those things, I say to them, please go to my LinkedIn profile and read the recommendations about my training. And because after I train anyone, I say, please can you fill in a recommendation on my LinkedIn? I use these to bring in more business. I've accrued, and all of a sudden, I mean, within 18 months, I've literally got, I think, about 200 recommendations. And these are golden. These speak for themselves. So as much as I can talk and tell someone until I'm blue in the face about how wonderful my training is, I can show them some Boolean searches, I can show them some cool Chrome extensions, etc., etc. When they read other people's recommendations who are sitting in roles like global talent director for X, Y, and Z, that really just speaks for itself. So I encourage you. You know, you're only going to get recommendations if you ask. A lot of people are too nervous or too scared to ask, but do it, because they really are going to build your online credibility. Our next point, and this is one that's always been good for me. In order to start a great online brand, you will need to dig deep and define your why. And this was actually something that I really struggled with, just, sharing with everyone in the room, because I didn't really know what my why was. I had a vague feeling about it, but I discovered my why as I have grown as an entrepreneur and in my own business. And my why is definitely to share with others and to empower others to do their jobs better. And now that I know what my why is, I actually find that I can talk to the services that I provide and I can sell them better because I understand why I'm doing it. And this is really, really important, is that to build an online brand, and we're going to look at the hows coming up, we need to know why. Why are we doing this? We really are not building an online brand for our health. I can promise you that much. And then finally, the reason why we need a strong online brand is that we can build relationships with people that you enjoy working with from anywhere. So just to share a story with you, I don't know if Liz is here or whether she's in the other room. I've never actually met Liz in person. However, Liz and I chat every day. So it's the same with Mark. Mark and I met at a conference, but we didn't know that we would develop sourcing training, like we'd collaborate together, we'd work together, we probably just said hello to each other. Since then, even though I remember meeting him vaguely once, we've built a fantastic online relationship. If I need anything from a sourcing perspective, I've met his whole team, they're lovely. It doesn't matter where you are. If you've got that online brand, if you've got that talent magnet and you've got that authenticity that is happening, you can make friends with anyone all over the world. I must say that I do talk to a couple of my friends who are distributed all over the world, and these are people that I've met relatively, recently, more frequently than I talk to people that live in Johannesburg who are my friends. So I think that is the power of having a good online brand, is that constant banter that you can have, backwards and forwards. So any questions at this point? Pop them in the chat, pop them in the Q&A. Yes, Nafar is saying we are going to open up a beach bar, a beach sourcing hub together. Absolutely. Absolutely, Nafar, that's definitely going to happen. So the next part of my presentation is looking at how we're going to build a strong online brand. But before we move on, I'm happy to answer any questions. This is quite a long section, but it's the last section of my presentation. I
got one Batman, question. It's a two-part question, which is only one.
That's a bit disappointing.
And it wasn't about the Hardy Dog. They're waiting to hold all the greatness to the end. How do you stay on top of commenting on folks' social media? Like, do you have an alert system set up? What does that look like?
No, to be honest with you, I'm pretty much old school and do all of that organically. And what will eventually happen is that if there is a candidate that you're particularly after, or for me, if it's a global talent director, I'm trying to get in to train their team or something like that, the more you comment, the more you like it, the more the algorithms of the social media platforms are going to put those in front of you. So, for example, my mom has recently joined Facebook, so to try and encourage her at the ripe old age of 75 on Facebook, that I will always like and comment. So whenever my mom does anything on Facebook, which is normally typing something that is just a whole bunch of letters because she's confused about what she's doing, it will show up first on my newsfeed. And that's pretty much what's going to happen. The more that you interact with someone, the more the algorithm is going to say, these two know each other, they're friends, I'm going to show them each other's posts. Cool. So no, I don't know if there's a fancy tool or anything to do that, but if there is, put it in the chat. If anyone knows, happy to share. So, okay, Nafar's asked, I share contact daily on Facebook. How do you choose it? I don't actually share daily on Facebook. I try and share 3 times a week on LinkedIn. Facebook's a little bit less frequently, but normally if I'm traveling or I'm away, I do tend to share a lot more. How do I choose what to share? I know what I shouldn't be sharing. So, so Nafar's talking about, I run a group called the SourceCon South Africa group, and I share on there daily because whatever I read an interesting article during the week, I just pre-schedule that. So all of those posts are pre-scheduled, but on my personal Facebook, it's just kind of when the mood takes me, to be honest. What I think of social media groups of people, I like things to be organic, Mark, to be honest with you, but I have just been contacted by an interesting company out of the UK who have built something similar to a Lem pod. Do you remember that Lem pod from Lemlist? And then everyone started getting banned. Apparently, this new tool doesn't get you banned because they've worked with LinkedIn's APIs in the background. I think I've got a loose, unofficial pod with some people, you know, Mark, you being part of that. But I don't know, it's, I don't know. You don't want someone to like and then whatever they like or whatever they pre-programmed as a comment is not related to what you've posted. I think that's even worse than not getting any comments. Is there a social scheduling that you can use to schedule all your posts on all platforms? Michael, thanks for answering for me. Yes, there is Buffer. I just generally tend to work with the platforms. Like when I post to LinkedIn, I send it to my Twitter feed. If I'm posting on Instagram, I send it to my Twitter feed and my Facebook. And I kind of just manipulate and change platforms as I need them, depending on what the post is like. Cool. So let's move on to how to build a strong online brand, because I really, really want to convey this message to you. So the first thing is that, you know, the first step to crafting your personal brand is to lay a foundation that you can confidently and authentically build on. And this is so important because a lot of people set out to do this by being something or someone that they are not. Okay, and this really is something which we need to be working on, is that you've got to be your authentic self. Someone or a lot of people out there your authentic self is going to resonate with them. You cannot try to be someone that you're not, because it's going to end badly. So with this, I found a really interesting quote, and it said, you want to find the special thing that is you and make your brand all about that. You can't make it up. It has to be real. Though it can and probably should be a little exaggerated. And that was by a lady called Pierre Silver. And that is so true. You know, what makes you you? And it might be quite difficult for you to actually figure this out. So when I wanted to do this, I actually approached those closest to me. And I said, I've got this business idea. This is what I want to be doing. I want to start building an online brand. When you think of me, what is the first thing that comes to mind? What resonates with you? And from that, I started to piece together and craft a bit of a foundation for what I was trying to achieve. And my special thing was sourcing and training, which is great because, I mean, I'm a trained teacher. I taught for 10 years. I then recruited for 10 years. And now I'm putting the two together and now I'm training people. So you've got to find what that special thing for you. Also, what you need to do is you need to take inventory of your existing brand assets. And this sounds a lot more complicated than what I really mean. So what are your skills and your credentials? So think about your life. What have you acquired? And I don't want you to think of something that it's like a degree or it's a diploma or a certification. What are your real skills? It could just be people skills. And you've got to identify those, because those are what are going to assist you to take you on the journey to where you're trying to get to, if you ever get there. Life is about the journey, right? And also how you're going to frame your online brand. You also need to think, and this for me is the most important one, your passions and your interests, because these are going to be the hooks that hook people. At the beginning of my presentation, I told you that I'm a wildlife photographer, because one day when I'm big, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to live in the bush and I'm going to take photographs. And that's why I start talking about it, because it's part of my visualization process. But also, what are you passionate about? You know, your passion is going to take you 120% of the way. Hard work, I believe, will only take you 80, 85% of the way. If you don't have passion, it's going to be very difficult to deliver on what you're trying to achieve. And then finally, you cannot do something if it doesn't sit well with your core values and beliefs. So what are these to you? What are your values? I've had to sit around many a boardroom table with an exco team trying to decipher what are the values of the organization. But what are your values? One of my biggest values is fairness. And I've recently walked away from a client because they tried to push me so much on my training rates that I thought that I can't do this because it's not fair to my other clients. And that's something that I'll always stand by. And these are things which you need to identify. And also, what's your story? And, you know, I'm really a big fan of this, is I want you to share your story with your audience to create engagement, loyalty, and connection. Now, African folklore and tradition is built on stories. Africans are big into storytelling. We love it. We love a good story. And this is what I encourage people to start doing with their online brand. Start sharing your story. You might think it's completely insignificant to anyone. No one wants to hear it. Who cares kind of thing. But if you share and you open up that door a little bit, you make yourself a little bit more vulnerable to others. People are going to want to share with you. And we all have a story. People just don't share their stories enough because they are nervous about what other people are going to say, which is absolute bullshit, in my opinion, because it's your story. Personal stories and personal experiences, for me, are the posts on LinkedIn that always perform the best. It's not sharing an article that John Smith wrote. It's your personal story because I'm interested in hearing about you. Also, you've got to build credibility by positioning yourself alongside others who stand out in the market. And this is so true, and it could be whichever market or whichever industry you're in. These people need to fit in with your values, and they need to fit in with your, or have the same passions as what you do, the same belief system, and also they need to have the same work ethic as you. So there's two ladies on the call. I'll give them a shout out. Jane is my go-to person when I need to partner with someone to do more of the recruiter training once I'm finished the sourcing training. And there's another lady who's on the calls, Kaz, who's the lady who got me into recruitment in the first place. And she saw something in me, took a chance, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And we worked incredibly well together, and we have continued a good relationship working together and as a friendship. And that is so important. You've got to build your credibility by positioning yourself alongside others, but people that you trust and people know that you can work with. And I really believe this because if you surround yourself, for me, it has to be with positive people, people who other people talk favorably about. It is so important. Also, what I encourage you to do with your online brand is to create an offer that your clients are going to love. And really, I'm going to use that word because they have to love it. So first of all, what do you do? And sit back and just think about it. What do you do? Because that is your value proposition. And it doesn't matter if you're self-employed, if you're a consultant, if you're working for an organization, if you are sitting around looking for your next opportunity, what do you do? And how do you articulate what you do? You know, that whole 30-second elevator pitch that we're talking about? How well can you describe what you do? And it's actually amazing when you think about it, because I get all tongue-tied because I do so many different things. I don't know what people want to hear about what I do. I haven't even told you about the vegetables growing outside or my cat. So yeah, you've got to make sure that what you do is what you do. Second of all, how do you do it? And this is what's going to define you. What's going to make you stand out? There's loads of people out there working in the HR and L&D space. How are you going to stand out, especially if you're looking for a new opportunity? How do you do things differently? And these are things that you should be throwing into conversations with people. Also, what I encourage you to do is to find your happy place and show up there regularly, because then your audience and your community know where to find you and engage with you. Like Nafar said, she said, I post every day on the SourceCon South Africa Facebook group. And the reason why I do that is my target audience. I've got 1,300 or 400 of the best recruitment consultants, talent acquisition specialists, internal teams, agency teams, global directors in that group. And I show up there every morning at 6 o'clock because I schedule all of the interesting articles that I've read during the week or during that day, and I put them on there, and people expect it. So if my article doesn't go out at 6 o'clock in the morning and I've maybe forgotten or I've been away for the weekend, I actually get people messaging me and saying, hey, did I miss the article today? What's going on here? So you've got to make sure is that you need to get out there and be consistent. It's like Mr. Hung Lee, Recruiting Brain Food, comes out every Sunday morning. It's in my inbox by about 9:30 here, South African time. People expect that. Also, what I encourage you to do is to choose your target audience. Not everyone is your ideal client. And this is so true. And I think that, the days of trying to be all things to all people are gone. They've gone out the window. They really and truly have. Not everyone is going to be your ideal client, even though you think they might be. You need to be brave enough to walk away from work if you feel that you can't deliver what they're looking for, or you need to do what I do and partner and collaborate with other people that you can pull in and you can work with if you don't feel confident in a certain space. So just remember that it's not your position to try and keep everybody happy, and not everyone is going to be in need of your services, even though they probably should be, right? Also, and this is something that I'm guilty of at the moment, I still need to sort this out, is with your online brand, create a compelling bio and take a great headshot. During lockdown, I think about 3 months ago, LinkedIn actually increased our bio or our headline on our profiles. It used to be sitting at about 250 characters. I think we can now put 350 characters in there. And build it out. Tell people what you do. You're not just a one-dimensional person who goes into the office from 9 to 5. Also, spend the money, take a good headshot. And I know that I need to do this. It's on the to-do list. But it really just goes such a long way. People are going to start recognizing that. They're going to start recognizing your online brand, et cetera, et cetera. It's a small investment for a lot of reward down the line. Also, what you need to be doing with your online brand, how you're going to build this, remember, is what we're talking about, is you need to actively listen and share news in your industry. Batman, I always like you the picture of a tutu, but we'll have a chat offline. Don't want to upset anyone during my presentation. You need to know what's going on in your industry. If you're recruiting in tech or IT, that doesn't mean that you need to learn how to code. That is not what I mean. What I mean is that if something big happens, let's say, for example, let's start some rumors, Amazon's buying Microsoft's buying Oracle, whatever it may be, you need to know that. You need to share that. Because too often, those of us in the talent acquisition space, we only connect with people when we want them for a role or we want them for a client, or as L&D professionals, we only connect with people when we're trying to get some business in or recruit them or whatever it may be. But if you were just that person who shared because you found it interesting and it was something, interesting from an industry perspective, remember, you want to stand out as the go-to recruiter in your industry. Then what you need to be doing is that you need to be sharing news and appearing knowledgeable in that space. I've got 2 more points for you. So I encourage you to join groups and volunteer to help others. I think giving back during the time of this pandemic, I have actually lost count about how many conferences I've presented at. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them. And by giving back, I always meet people. So on that note, Batman, please just drop in my LinkedIn on there. People connect with me. I think that it's great to join groups and give back to others. I'm nearly done, I promise. And then the last one is to find an expert that you admire and follow in their footsteps. So I have several people like this that I follow, just to learn how they do things, observe them, share their content, et cetera, et cetera. And that was great, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Another one of my pictures over here. There's my contact details. Get in touch. It's been awesome. So thank you very much. And thanks to everyone who came on to support me, friends and family. Thanks, Julia.
That was awesome.